Okay, time for 3.2. The angry Poseidon retreated to the depths of the sea. So, what is the action? Because we always start with the main idea line. The action retreated. Do I see anything that would put me forward or back on the timeline? No. So that's my verb. Who is doing the retreating? Poseidon. So that's my subject. So my main idea is Poseidon retreated. So now let's start placing our modifiers, our danglies. The, well, clearly that's Poseidon and the first word, so I capitalize it. Angry, well, that's describing Poseidon. To, well, clearly, you guys are going to get sick of me saying this. To is not describing anything. It is a relationship word, which means I am looking for the phrase. To the, not a noun. Depths. Depths. Well, you can have the depths, and depths are something that's under the ocean, so it's a place, and a noun is a person, place, or thing, so yep, that's my noun. So, to the depths is my whole prepositional phrase. So, what is to the depths describing? Is it describing Poseidon? He's a to the depths Poseidon, or does it describe the retreat? Well, it's describing the retreat. So I put in my prepositional phrase angle bracket. My relationship word goes here. My noun goes on the flat. The is modifying depths. So my next word is of. Ding, ding. That's another relationship word, which means I have to find the whole phrase. The, not a noun. Sea, yep. Of the sea is the whole phrase. So of the sea, what does it describe? Does it describe the retreat? He retreated of the sea. No, that makes no sense, especially since the preposition of means either part and whole, so you've got a part of a bigger whole, or it means ownership. It's the car of my dad. So that's what of means. It's part and whole, or it's ownership. There's no retreated and sea don't have that relationship. Guess what does have that relationship? Where did he retreat? To the depths. The depths of what? The depths of the sea. So, angle bracket off of depths, since this prepositional phrase is modifying depths. Relationship word of, noun, sea, and we have one word that describes sea. There you go. That is number 1. So, Hades lives in the palace of Elysium. So, we always start with the main idea line. We look for the verb. What goes on? Lives. Do I have anything that moves me on the timeline, forward or back? Nope, that's my whole verb. Who is it that lives? What's my subject? Hades. Hades lives. That is my main idea. Now I'm ready for all my modifiers. In, ding ding. It's a prepositional phrase, so I'm looking for the next noun. In the palace, palace, ding ding ding. So, in the palace, does that describe where he lives, or does that describe Hades? He's in the palace Hades. Now, clearly that describes where he lives. So, prepositional phrase bracket off of lives, relationship word in, noun palace, and the describes palace. Now I have of, ding, ding, ding. Of is my preposition. It's a relationship word. So I'm looking for the first noun that follows, Elysium. What does of Elysium describe? Is it he lives of Elysium? Well, that's weird. Is it he's Hades of Elysium? You know, maybe it still feels weird. Is it the palace of Elysium? Ding, ding. And you can see that you're right, because the relationship between palace and Elysium is that this is part of that. And of course, we just said the word of means it's either ownership or it's part and whole. The palace is just part of Elysium, or the Elysian fields, they're sometimes called. Okay, let's go to the next one. The Titans of Greek mythology wait in Tartarus in the underworld. Okay, so the Titans are the ones that originally ruled the world, and the Greek gods overthrew them. Specifically, Zeus led that battle, and they locked the Titans in Tartarus, or the underworld. So what is the action that's going on? Well, waiting. If that's my action, that's my verb. Do I have any helping verbs that move me on the timeline? No. These verbs are way easier this unit. Who is it that's doing the waiting? What's my subject? Well, the Titans. So Titans wait is my main idea. Now I'm ready for my danglies. So first word, the. Well, clearly that's describing Titans. I'm going to capitalize it since it's the first word of the sentence. Of Greek mythology. So of, at this point, you should be like, of, ding, ding, ding. That's a prepositional phrase. What's my noun that ends it? The last noun, the first noun that I hit is mythology. So now I don't ask about a specific word, what does of describe? I ask, what does this whole phrase describe? So of Greek mythology, is that describing how they wait, or is that describing the Titans? That's describing the Titans. The Titans are part of Greek mythology. So let's put that in. Relationship word, of. The last word is your noun, and that goes on the flat, mythology. Then I have Greek. And sometimes kids are like, but Greek is a noun. No, it's not. Greece is a noun. Greek is a description. The Greek language, the Greek people. So, in this case, Greek mythology. Greek is describing mythology. So, it's a dangly under mythology. Okay, next word, I have wait, and that's diagrammed. In, which should make you go ding, 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 in. Looking for a noun, Tartarus is a place. It's a place that doesn't really exist, but it's a place. What does in Tartarus describe? Does it describe Titans? They're only Titans when they're in Tartarus. Or does it describe the waiting? That's where they're waiting. Clearly it describes the waiting. So prepositional phrase means I immediately create a bracket. On the angle goes the relationship word in. On the flat goes the noun. In Tartarus. Next word, in, ding, ding, ding. Another relationship word. That makes it a preposition. In the underworld is my noun. Okay, in the underworld. Is it describing their waiting? They're waiting in the underworld. Maybe, but they're not really waiting in the underworld. They're waiting in Tartarus. So that feels a little bit awkward. Is it describing the Titans? They're in the underworld Titans? No. Is it describing mythology? Is it in the underworld mythology? No. Is it describing Tartarus? Is it in the underworld Tartarus? Like Tartarus exists in the underworld. Yes, that's the best match. This one was a little bit harder because it sounds like it's describing the waiting, but the waiting is actually happening in Tartarus. The underworld is very large. It has the Elysian fields or Elysium. It has Tartarus. It has Hades' palace. The waiting is going on in Tartarus, which is a specific part of the underworld, and Tartarus just happens to exist in underworld. The. Okay, let's go to the next one. Most of the dead in Greek mythology sleep in death. So the Greeks believe that for the most part, you went to sleep, and unless someone gave you a sacrifice, spilled blood in your name, pretty much you just weren't aware of anything. So what is the action that's going on? Sleep. Now, this is one where it's going to get a little tricky because a lot of times students put dead up here. And then they start trying to diagram and stuff falls apart and they're like, most dead? So it's kind of like Princess Bride where he's only mostly dead, but then what do I do with of? because of, is it describing dead? And then they fall apart and they can't figure it out. The minute you start falling apart, stop, go back and look at those relationship words. So I have of. The next noun is going to be what finishes that preposition. Of the dead. If that's a prepositional phrase, it is not the subject. I then have in. Okay, I'm looking for my next noun. Greek is not a noun, but mythology is. So, oops. There you go. Can't spell mythology for a second. These are prepositional phrases, which means I have to take them out, which means what I'm left with is most sleep in death. What is my subject? Well, you only got one word. Most. Now, what does the phrase of the dead describe? Well, it's what it's most of. It's not most of the living. It's most of dead, the. Okay. In Greek mythology, what does that describe? Is it most in Greek mythology sleep? Well, no, those would be really boring myths if most people were sleeping. What is it that sleeps in mythology? The dead. It's describing dead, so it has to dangle under dead. In is my relationship. My noun is mythology. And then Greek describes mythology. So I have most of the dead in Greek mythology sleep in death. So in is a relationship word. My noun, death. What does that prepositional phrase describe? Does it describe the most or does it describe the sleeping? Well, they sleep in death. So there is number 4. One more in this unit, and this is the one that on the key I completely screwed up, which is probably because I was watching television at the same time. So here's a life lesson for you. Don't try and watch television and do homework, because even if you understand something insanely well, like I really do understand sentence diagramming, you are still going to occasionally completely screw it up because your attention is split. So some interesting happened on television, and I lost it. So the key is screwed up, but let's go over the right answer. The bravest of the Greek dead live in Elysium in the underworld. So I already know I'm going to have a lot of prepositional phrase stuff to sort here, which is not surprising considering this is Unit 3, prepositional phrases. So, main idea line. What is the action? Well, the action is live. Do I have helping verbs that move me on the timeline? No. What is my subject? Well, that might be a little bit tricky because I've got the dead, I've got Greek, I've got lots of stuff going on. So let us sort out what our prepositional phrases are. I see of. The minute I see of, I know it's a prepositional phrase. I'm looking for my first noun. Of the Greek dead. Ding, 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 ding. Preposition, noun. By the way, this is often called the object of the preposition because it is the object that is working with the preposition to create this phrase. And I don't think you actually care about that, but oh well. So that means what I'm left with in front of live that might be the subject is the or bravest. Pretty sure the is not a subject, which means what I'm left with is bravest. Yep. And then the, first word, capitalize it. The bravest live in Elysium. This is an example of you have to pay attention to the function the word is doing instead of what the word itself is. Because a lot of people are going to look at bravest and say, well, that's an adjective, the bravest hero. Well, in that phrase it is. But here, it is not modifying a noun. It is acting as the noun itself. The bravest live in Elysium. So my main idea is bravest live. And so pay attention to what the structure of the sentence is. Don't try and second guess yourself and say, well, I know that word has an ly, so it has to be an adverb. No, they aren't all adverbs. I'm trying to teach you to pay attention to the structure and the function. Don't just try and point to a specific word and say, well, that's what it has to be. English is very flexible, too flexible. Makes it hard to learn. So, of the Greek dead, what is that describing? It's describing the bravest of what? So, prepositional phrase, I immediately put my angle bracket in, relationship word of, noun, very last word in the phrase, dead. And then, of course, what describes dead? The Greek. So, the bravest of the Greek dead live. Now I run into another relationship word, in. I'm looking for the matching noun. Elysium. In. Looking for the matching noun. The, not a noun. Underworld. Okay, so now that I know my phrases, what do the phrases describe? In Elysium, is that describing the bravest? The bravest are in Elysium, or where the bravest live? Well, it's actually describing where they live. Because we're not saying the bravest in Elysium live on the mountaintop. No, we're saying the bravest live in Elysium. So it's describing where they all live. Okay, that takes care of that. Now we have in the underworld. Does in the underworld describe where they live? Not directly. Where they live is in Elysium. But where is Elysium? Elysium itself is in the underworld. So this is describing Elysium. Okay, how did you do with 3.2? Because next up we have done prepositional phrases that modify the noun. We've done prepositional phrases that modify the verb. We've done prepositional phrases that modify other prepositional phrases. So now we are ready for 3.3, which is prepositional phrases could land anywhere.